March 30th, 1972. Operation Linebacker begins. American jets streak through monsoon clouds over North Vietnam, but surface-to-air missiles rise to meet them. MiG-21s dive from above. F-4 Phantoms explode in orange fireballs. It's a deadly game of cat and mouse in the most dangerous skies on Earth, where American pilots face a 50-50 chance of making it home alive. But let's change one thing. Sitting on the flight deck of the USS Constellation, hidden under a maintenance tarp, is something that shouldn't exist for another 40 years. The F-35 Lightning II, a fifth-generation stealth fighter dropped into a war it was never built for. So what happens when the most advanced multi-role fighter on the planet is unleashed over the jungles of Vietnam? Can it turn the tide of air combat? Or is even cutting-edge technology no match for the brutal realities of war? So what exactly just got dropped into 1972? The F-35 Lightning II, a technological marvel that makes every Vietnam-era aircraft look like a horse and buggy. They can cruise at Mach 1.6. That's over 1,200 miles per hour or 1,930 kilometers per hour, faster than anything flying over Vietnam. The fastest fighter in the North Vietnamese inventory, the MiG-21, tops out at barely 1,300 miles per hour in a dive, and that's pushing the engine to its absolute limits. But speed isn't its greatest weapon. It's nearly invisible. The F-35's stealth coating and angular design make it appear as nothing more than a small bird on enemy radar screens. While every other aircraft in 1972 lights up radar displays like Christmas trees, the Lightning II is a ghost that can see everything while remaining completely undetected. Here's what it's carrying: 4 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles, radar-guided killers that can hit targets from over 60 miles away with 90% accuracy. These missiles have their own miniature radar systems and can track multiple targets simultaneously. 2 IM-9X Sidewinders with thrust vectoring capability and 360-degree engagement zones. They can literally hit targets behind the aircraft. 1 AU-22/A 25mm cannon with 180 rounds of devastating firepower that can tear through aircraft armor like tissue paper. Its ANAPG 81A ESA radar is perhaps the most terrifying weapon of all. This system can simultaneously track over 20 targets, jam enemy radar systems, and provide detailed ground mapping, all while remaining completely passive and undetectable. It can see a MiG-21 from 100 miles away, while the enemy pilot has no idea he's being watched. The F-35's sensor fusion system combines radar, infrared, and electronic warfare data into a single comprehensive picture. The pilot doesn't just see other aircraft. He sees their exact speed, altitude, heading, and even what weapons they're carrying. He knows if they're locked onto him before they even fire. He can engage multiple targets simultaneously while the enemy is still trying to figure out where he is. But here's the problem. It's 1972. No satellite GPS constellation, no data links to modern command centers, no AWACS aircraft with compatible systems, no spare parts, no technicians who understand stealth technology or computer-controlled flight systems. The Lightning gets one mission, maybe two if it's lucky, and then it's done. Now let's look at what it's up against, because North Vietnam's air defenses in 1972 were no joke. The North Vietnamese Air Force had learned hard lessons from years of combat. Soviet-supplied MiG-21 fish beds could hit Mach 2 in short bursts, impressive for their time, but their radar was primitive, with a detection range of maybe 15 miles on a good day. Their R-3S missiles had a range of barely 3 miles, and could only engage targets directly in front of them. MiG-19s and MiG-17s were even more limited, relying on 23mm and 37mm cannons that required pilots to get within 1,000 yards of their targets. These were skilled, experienced pilots who had survived years of combat, but they were flying machines that belonged to an earlier era of warfare. But the real threat wasn't the fighters, it was the surface-to-air missiles. The SA-2 guideline system had turned North Vietnamese skies into a deadly gauntlet. These telephone pole-sized missiles could reach 60,000 feet and had already claimed over 200 American aircraft. Their fan-song radar guidance systems created overlapping fields of fire that forced American pilots into predictable flight patterns. The SA-3 GOA system defended lower altitudes with faster, more maneuverable missiles. Anti-aircraft artillery filled the gaps with walls of exploding metal. By 1972, North Vietnam had one of the most sophisticated air defense networks in the world, all coordinated by ground-based radar systems that could track dozens of aircraft simultaneously. The North Vietnamese strategy was simple but devastatingly effective. Use ground-based radar to vector MiGs into American formations, then hit them with coordinated SAM attacks. Force the Americans to fly low to avoid missiles, then jump them with fighters. Use the terrain, mountains, clouds, and ground clutter, to mask their approach until the last second. It was a deadly chess game, and by 1972, they were winning. American losses were mounting, and pilots were getting shot down faster than they could be replaced. But this time, someone's about to change the rules entirely. The morning of March 30th, 1972, a flight of F-4 Phantoms approaches Hanoi, loaded with 2,000-pound bombs for a strategic target. North Vietnamese radar operators at sites codenamed Tall King track their approach from 200 miles away. Standard procedure. MiG-21s scramble from Phuc Yen Air Base, their pilots already calculating intercept courses. SA-2 sites around Hanoi power up their guidance radars, missile crews prepping for launch. Everything's going according to plan. Then something impossible happens. The F-35 launches from the Constellation, its pilot completely invisible to every radar system in North Vietnam. As it climbs rapidly toward its cruising altitude, its advanced sensors immediately detect everything. The MiG-21s climbing to intercept the Phantoms, the SA-2 sites powering up, the ground control radar painting targets, even individual anti-aircraft guns being moved into position. From 50 miles away, the Lightning locks onto the lead MiG-21. The North Vietnamese pilot has no idea he's been targeted. No warning tone in his headset, no radar lock alert, no indication that death is screaming toward him at Mach 4. The AMRAAM missile's own radar activates only in the final seconds, giving the pilot maybe 2 seconds to react before 50 pounds of high explosive erases his aircraft from existence. Chaos erupts on North Vietnamese radio frequencies. Ground control is screaming for reports. Where did it come from? What shot down a red leader? The remaining MiG pilots are spinning in all directions, trying to find a threat that doesn't exist on their scopes. Their radar screens show nothing but the original F-4 formation, still inbound and apparently defenseless. Another AMRAAM streaks through the air. Another MiG explodes in a ball of fire. Then another. The North Vietnamese pilots are dying without ever seeing their killer, without getting a single shot off in return. By the time the SA-2 sites try to engage, their targets have vanished. The F-35's AN/ALQ-81 electronic warfare system is simultaneously jamming their guidance radars while feeding false targets to their screens. The missile operators are firing at ghosts, while the real threat methodically destroys everything in the sky. The few SA-2s that do launch are easily evaded. The F-35's threat warning system detects the missile launches instantly and automatically deploys countermeasures, while the pilot maneuvers away from the threat. What would be a death sentence for any 1972 aircraft is merely an inconvenience for the Lightning II. In less than 5 minutes, an entire MiG squadron is gone. The Phantoms complete their bombing run unopposed, hitting their target with precision, while SA-2 sites waste their entire missile inventory shooting at electronic Phantoms. Not a single American aircraft is lost. The most dangerous mission in the Vietnam War has become a routine milk run. But here's where reality sets in. The F-35 burns through fuel fast during combat operations. At full afterburner, it consumes over 15,000 pounds of fuel per hour. After 45 minutes of intense maneuvering, electronic warfare, and multiple missile launches, it needs to return to base, and that creates a massive problem. The Lightning II runs on JP-8 jet fuel, a modern synthetic blend with specific additives and thermal properties that don't exist in 1972. The JP-4 fuel used by Navy aircraft in 1972 might work temporarily, but it's not optimized for the F-35's Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine. The engine control systems expect specific fuel characteristics, and using the wrong fuel could cause catastrophic engine failure. More critically, it can't be rearmed. AIM-120. AMRAAMs won't exist for another 15 years. The AIM-9X Sidewinder is decades away from development. The 25mm cannon ammunition uses a completely different case design than anything in the Navy's inventory. Once those weapons are expended, the F-35 becomes the world's most expensive reconnaissance aircraft. No maintenance crew understands its systems. The F-35 relies on computer diagnostics that interface with ground support equipment that won't be invented until the 2000s. If a sensor fails, if the stealth coating gets damaged by monsoon rain, if any of its thousands of computer systems glitch, it stays that way. Without proper maintenance protocols, even minor issues become mission-ending problems. The aircraft's logistics footprint is enormous. In modern operations, each F-35 requires a team of specialized technicians, computer systems for mission planning, and constant software updates. None of that exists in 1972. The most advanced fighter in history is suddenly reduced to a single-use weapon. Meanwhile, the North Vietnamese aren't sitting idle. They're getting resupplied by the Soviet Union with new aircraft, new missiles, new radar systems. They can replace their losses within weeks. The Americans can't replace their miracle jet. Once it's gone forever. The psychological impact, however, would be devastating. Imagine being a North Vietnamese pilot who survived years of combat, suddenly watching your entire squadron disappear one by one, against an enemy you can't see, can't track, and can't fight. Radio chatter would be filled with panic, confusion, and fear. Pilots would refuse to fly missions, knowing they're being sent to die against an invisible enemy. Soviet advisors would be frantically trying to understand what happened. Intelligence reports would describe impossible aircraft performance, speeds that shouldn't be possible, radar invisibility, missiles that hit from ranges that defy physics. The entire North Vietnamese air strategy would collapse overnight. For American forces, seeing their own mysterious superfighter dominate the skies would be a massive morale boost. Suddenly, the most dangerous part of the war, flying missions over North Vietnam, becomes almost routine. Pilots would volunteer for missions they previously avoided. The psychological balance of the air war would shift completely. So can one F-35 actually change the outcome of the Vietnam Air War? The answer is complicated. In pure air-to-air combat, the Lightning II is unstoppable. It could single-handedly destroy every MiG in North Vietnam's inventory if it had unlimited fuel and ammunition. Its stealth capability makes it nearly invulnerable to surface-to-air missiles. In the short term, it would achieve complete air superiority. But Vietnam wasn't just about air combat. It was about logistics, politics, and willpower. The F-35 might win every engagement, but it can't bomb the Ho Chi Minh Trail into non-existence. It can't stop guerrilla warfare in the South. It can't change the fundamental strategic challenges that made Vietnam unwinnable for the United States. What it could do is save lives. American pilots would have near-zero losses during air operations. The dreaded Route Package 6, the heavily defended area around Hanoi, would become just another target. Operations like Rolling Thunder and Linebacker would achieve their objectives with minimal losses. The ripple effects would be enormous. With air superiority assured, American ground forces would have unlimited close air support. B-52 bombers could operate in daylight over North Vietnam without fighter escort. The entire dynamic of the war would change. But here's the thing about technological advantages in warfare. They're temporary. The North Vietnamese were masters of adaptation. They'd study wreckage, change tactics, maybe even get help from Soviet scientists to develop countermeasures. They might start using different radar frequencies or develop new missile systems specifically designed to counter stealth aircraft. The F-35's advantage would shrink over time, and once its limited ammunition and fuel supply is exhausted, the technological balance would shift back to conventional warfare. The war might end differently, but it wouldn't end quickly. One aircraft, no matter how advanced, can't solve the complex political and strategic problems that defined the Vietnam conflict. Still, imagine being a North Vietnamese pilot in 1972, watching your squadron disappear one by one, or an American pilot, suddenly protected by technology that seems like magic. The F-35 wouldn't end the war, but it would fundamentally change how it was fought. The real question isn't whether the F-35 could dominate Vietnam-era aircraft. It absolutely could. The question is whether technological superiority can overcome the deeper strategic realities of warfare. And in Vietnam, those realities were about much more than just air combat. What do you think? Could one impossibly advanced fighter jet change the course of history?